There we go. Alright, what's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another video, another fly tying tutorial. Today we're tying the top shelf hopper. This pattern, I believe, was developed by a guy named Drew. I'm sure you guys might have seen him on YouTube. Drew Looking Fishy. He does a lot of big road trips out west. And but this is how I learned about this fly. So since I started watching his videos, he's fishing this top shelf hopper 90% of the time when he's doing his dry dropper stuff. And I decided to tie some, and I absolutely love it. So anyway, this is my go-to dry fly for a dry dropper. It's got double foam on it, and it just floats really well. So I could put that pretty good style nymph on it with some split shot, and this stuff will float it. So anyway, let's get into it, and I'll show you guys how he ties his, and how we're going to tie ours today. So they're pretty much the same, but this is for sure not my pattern. But we're going to start off with a size 10 hook here, and I've got a long shank and wide gap, so that's probably going to be, you know, the thing to have. And thread doesn't really matter. I think it's gonna be covered up, but kind of using a heavier thread, maybe like a 140 denier, and you can just kind of start your thread halfway up, trim that excess, and we're gonna move our way on back here to the bend of the hook, right where start to get the bend of the hook. And so we're doing double foam, so we're going to tie in two different pieces of foam, and we're start with brown, and this is just 2mm craft foam. You get this at Walmart or places like that, or Hobby Lobby, or your fly shop. Just gonna get this tied in right here. That's one of the benefits of using a heavier thread, is so that way you can kind of really crank down on this stuff. All right, and now we're going to come back with our tan foam tied in right here, right on top of it. Cover this up just a little bit, but you're about to put some dubbing on it. So anyway, this is kind of how the shape is going to look. So you kind of get this bend in the butt there. So now I'm going to come through with some dubbing, and for the butt section here, I'm just using some of this like sailboat gray kind of ice dub, and just get you a small clump of that. Form a small dubbing noodle here. Essentially all we're going to do is just cover up where we tied this in at. Kind of work our way up the body a little bit. It's about right there. I'll add just a little bit more dubbing onto this. Doesn't take a whole lot. Okay, right there, I like that spot. Okay, so now we're gonna lay this over, and you can kind of go all the way, or you to kind of have like a rounded butt, or you can kind of push it back a little bit to kind of have a you know, butt that sticks out a little bit on it. I kind of like it like that. So you just throw both of those over, and we're going to tie in right here. So just a couple loose wraps, and hold it kind of on your side of the hook, so when you pull it, it rotates that foam right on top of the hook. So just do a couple more wraps here, and then now we can move on up. Try to leave yourself some room behind the eye. Definitely don't want to crowd the eye on this fly. Okay, like it right there. Now we're just gonna do the same thing. A couple loose wraps. Cinch it down. A couple more wraps here. All right, now we're going to cover this piece up. And you don't have to add a whole lot of wraps on this. Just enough to kind of break it down, because we're about to add a lot more wraps with some dubbing. Okay, so at this point, we can go ahead and tie in. I like to do the crystal flash, a little bit of crystal flash, and you can do it whatever kind of color you like. But just take 4 or 5 strands of that, and I like to loop it around my thread here, kind of get it even. And we're just going to tie it in right there on top. That way you have a little bit of flash underneath. Then I'm going to come back through with some polypropylene yarn, just some macrame yarn. You can do this in different colors, but I just got some white here today, so I'm going to do the same thing and just tie this in. So this wing kind of helps with visibility, and it also, not that you need a whole lot more of floatability on double foam, but it does add some kind of foam, or not foam, but some floating to it. But more or less is more to be able to see it. Okay. And now we're going to add in our hackle. And so with the hackle, just using some of this light brown color hackle, and get it sized appropriate. So we're just going to come in here, tie this in. Just cover up that stem there. And see, that's kind of why you don't have to do so many thread wraps right here up front, because we're about to put a bunch of thread wraps on it. I'm going to come in with some silicone legs. I really like the orange or yellow color, but I run out of that, so we're just going to use these olive silicone legs. And we're just adding 2 of these, 1 on each side. Put about halfway in the middle there. Just get that nice. Try to get them even, but not too many wraps on this. Okay, so now bring your thread back to the rear of that section, and now we're to dub over this stuff. So I'm going to use color just this rusty brown, super fine dry fly dubbing, and create a small dubbing noodle here. And kind of rule of thumb that I generally have found is roughly 2 to 3 turns on each side of these rubber legs, generally speaking, gets you covered up enough. So that's kind of what we're going to do, and we can just add a little bit at a time, and that way we're not overdoing it on the dubbing. This really looks like a complicated fly to tie, but it's really pretty easy. Just looks like a lot of moving parts, but it's really not that bad. I had a little bit more dubbing right there because I want to go ahead and cover all that up really nicely. Yeah, that looks a little bit better. Yeah. Okay, cool. So now at this point, we're ready to wrap our hackle here. And you could do this with your fingers, or you can do it with some hackle pliers. It's really kind of up to you, but same thing here. We're just going to do like 2 turns on each side of the legs here. Oh, well, that happens sometimes, guys. It's not that big of a deal. Just grab it and start it over. I always say nothing like doing the same job twice, and that applies here. Okay, so now we just gotta tie off on that stem here. Do a couple wraps in front of that to kind of secure it down. Now we can come in here and trim that stem out. Nice. Okay, so now we just need to move our thread to front of the eye here and do a couple turns on a whip finish and do some trimming. So we're almost done here. See if they're not. Cut our thread. All right, so I like to trim our head up here. I like to have just a little bit of a bulky head there and kind of round the corners off. And this is probably not so important. The fish are not going to look at your fly and say, oh, you didn't round your corners, I'm not going to eat that. But it kind of makes it look a little bit neater. And then at this point, we can kind of grab our wing and our flash. I like to cut it just a little bit further back in the body there. And we can kind of trim our legs up similar way. Kind of gauge it just in front of the head and just behind the butt section. All right, so that's pretty much it. I'm gonna add a little bit of super glue to those thread wraps. Here I'm just using some Gorilla Glue because that's what I have, but feel free to use whatever you like. Move that in with my box a little bit so it's not as all over the place. All right, well, that's it. So again, you know, like I said, you can do this in several different kinds of color combinations, you know, whatever you like. But this is the way that Drew ties it up, and I've tied it up this way too, and I really, really like it. So anyway, you guys tie some of these up and fish them, see what you think. But this is the top shelf hopper. And again, this pattern's from Drew Looking Fishy. But anyway, if you guys got any comments, drop those below. Let me know what you guys want to see, and tell me what you think about this fly. Appreciate you guys watching, and remember to like and subscribe, and we'll see you on the next one.